Hello friends, welcome to MOM, the Hindu News Analysis program presented by DEEKSHA SPACE. Today in this session, we are going to look after December 28th, 2020 Hindu newspaper. Today's first article, Inner Line Permit is Centre's biggest gift to Manipur. This article we are going to discuss in the context of Union Home Minister's speech in Imphal, that is Manipur's capital. First, geographically, Manipur is surrounded by Nagaland, Assam and Arunachal Pradesh. The major population of Manipur includes around 53% of Meitei ethnic group. So 53% is MEITEI, Meitei ethnic group, followed by Nagas who are around 24% and Kuki-Zo tribe. Kuki-Zo tribe are around 16%. So the overall population, that is tribal population, is around 41% of the state population. And according to 2011 census, Hinduism is the major religion in the state, followed by Christianity and Islam, Sanahism, Buddhism and Judaism, etc. Major dance form of Manipur is Manipuri dance, and it is credited, Manipur is credited for introducing polo to Europeans. So this is brief geographical understanding with respect to the Manipur state. If you look at how it got statehood, as we all know, in the initial time when British thought of leaving India and gave an option of princely states either to join India and Pakistan, at that point of time, Manipur passed its State Constitution Act 1947 for democratic form of government. And Maharaja of Manipur at that point of time was Maharaja Bhud Chandra. So he was asked to come down to Shillong in order to merge with Union of India. And it is believed that he merged or he signed the merger agreement under duress. And that was the bone of contention which led to insurgency or which led to conflict in this region for a very long time. In 1949, Manipur became part of India, and in 1956, it became Union Territory. In 1972, Northeastern India Reorganization Act 1971, Northeastern India Reorganization Act 1971, it became a full statehood or full-fledged state of the Indian territory. So this is all about a brief history with respect to Manipur as a state. Here in this article, the Inner Line Permit, which is actually a British era Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation, which is called as an official document issued to let an Indian citizen to enter a protected area for a limited period. It is thought it is the best idea to reduce the illegal immigration in this region. In December 2019, the Manipur was given an inner line permit status in order to protect the nativity of that region. However, ILP is also needed in Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, Nagaland and Meghalaya have been demanding the implementation of ILP in this region. So inner line permit, to understand briefly, it is an official document or a pass kind of thing in order to enter into a protected area, and it is to protect the nativity of that region is what needs to be understood. However, the government has been successful from past 3 years in order to develop or go on with peace talks with various organizations or various groups in that state. Still, there are few which are out of the purview of peace process, and the government is trying to get them on board also, is what is being served in this speech. So this is an understanding which needs to be developed with respect to Manipur. Today's next article, make a resolution to use local products, Prime Minister. So in this article, we are going to discuss the Prime Minister's speech in Mann Ki Baat, which was the last of this year. In this speech, Prime Minister has asked us to come up with resolutions for India's sake. As India is trying to be self-reliant nation with respect to Atmanirbhar Bharat, so he has asked the citizens take a resolution which will help us to take India to the next level. So first he was telling with respect to the resolution of using Indian products. So he has cautioned that Indians have got submitted themselves to the products from the abroad. And in order to make India self-reliant, the Indians have to start using the products which are made domestically or which are manufactured in the Indian context. Here, he has asked the manufacturers also to develop the products to the global standards and push for vocal for local campaign. He asked to check out the list of articles or to check out the list of things which we are using in daily life and where they are manufactured. So, by that the manufacturers also can understand where and what can be produced in India and how the consumers can also change their needs as per the requirement. Second, he was speaking about buying saffron from Kashmir. So saffron, as we all know, is high quality spice which is derived from crocus flower. So it is a high quality spice which is derived from crocus flower, and more than 75,000 crocus flowers are needed to produce 1 pound of saffron. And this spice is extensively used in medicines and cooking in Kashmir. So he has asked the Indians to prefer using Kashmiri saffron, which will help the economy of the Jammu Kashmir region also. And second, due to this pandemic, we have seen there were no talks with respect to single-use plastic. However, he has asked, the second resolution was with respect to the plastic in the country, which needs to be banned completely. As we all know, there was Bhagavad Gita Day, Bhagavad Gita Jayanti 2 days ago, and two couples, Someshwar beach was cleaned by Karnataka couple, Anudeep and Minusha were also mentioned, and Himalayas region by Pradeep Sangwan. So we need to understand how this plastic and garbage which is getting into the nature's serenity and destroying it needs to be understood, and efforts needs to be taken care for that. So for Indians, he has asked these two resolutions, one with respect to the manufacturing of goods and use of Indian made products to give a push for Atmanirbhar Bharat project. Second, he asked for banning of single-use plastic, for which these two resolutions are required in order to have a better and safer India. Today's next article, towards an effective vaccination distribution policy. This article we are going to discuss as India is planning to vaccinate 300 million people against COVID-19 over next 6 to 7 months. And the priority wise, they are given first priority to healthcare workers and other frontline workers, followed by 50 years of old age people. This is roughly 20% of the population which will be vaccinated by July or August 2021. And Government of India has already made an arrangement with Pune's Serum Based Institute or Serum Institute of India, which is world's largest producer of vaccines, for around 600 million doses. So these 600 million doses is because 300 million people will be vaccinated in two stages. That is, two dosages have to be given for each individual. So it is acquiring around 500 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine from Pune based Serum Institute. However, there are other emergency authorizations under of the vaccinations like Bharat Biotech Covaxin and Russian Sputnik 5. Clinical trials are still being conducted by Reddy's lab, and there can be future approvals which can be given to these vaccine also. So in this article, we are going to discuss few of the issues which respect to the dimensions, who gets the priority, and whether private players will be included under this strategy or not. So first, looking at the issue of priority, if you see, so whenever a priority is given, there are two objectives which needs to be taken. One is providing protection to those who gets vaccinated, so they should get protection. Second, to minimize or to at least slow down the speed and spread of viral transmission. So under priority, if these two objectives are taken into consideration, the groups or the section of people that is 20%, first are health line workers, that is health workers, so or frontline workers. If they are vaccinated, yes, since many of the people will be meeting them and they will be meeting many people, that will help to reduce the transmission, and both the objectives can be met over there. However, if you look at the other section of people like more than 50 years of age who are taken into consideration for vaccination, yes, first protection for the disease by the vaccination can be given, but the second objective where it is need to slow down the speed or spread of viral transmission cannot be achieved, because these people or old age senior citizens will not be traveling a lot or will not be interacting a lot. So that objective will be failure. So the government has to take over or understand that the population like Dharavi slum should be vaccinated first, because they are more likely to be threat under this current strategy, because they will be more traveling over various sectors, or they will be working under various places where the strategy or where the transmission can be increased. So this is one point of understanding which needs to be understood and given a thought over. And the second, with respect to the involvement of private hospitals for vaccination, is the second question. With the present status of what government of India is trying to see, we can clearly understand that it will be more of a public process of vaccination, where private players are not given any opportunity or they will not be involved. But at the present point of time, the government of India can work out a strategy where it will completely look after the public procurement. Second, it can also give a provision for private players to help in vaccination. So these private players cannot be taken into consideration, and government should make sure that the involvement of private players will not affect the availability of vaccination for the poor people. If these objectives or if these criteria can be met, the involvement of private players can be a beneficial process of involving them in the vaccination process is what is the author is trying to say here. And if you look at the private sector's request to the government with respect to import and distribution of vaccine in India is going to be very challenging with respect to the cost strategy. If you look at the vast number of people in India and the market what India has got, yes, there are chances that the price of vaccine can be reduced with respect to the Indian market. So that is where private players can be a beneficial for win-win situation with respect to the distribution of vaccination or universal vaccination that needs to be taken care in India with respect to COVID-19 pandemic. Today's next article, essential dry run. This article we are going to discuss as in the next couple of weeks, phase 3 data of 2 COVID-19 vaccines tested by Indian manufacturers are expected to be submitted for emergency use approval. And these vaccines will go out or will be rolling out to immunize 4 high-risk groups, which the first group will include health workers. So here the government of India has been immunizing children for various diseases on every year basis. But under COVID-19 vaccine, we will have to immunize adults. But since we have got the sufficient infrastructure from the previous days with respect to the immunization or universal immunization program, this will be not a hectic task if the things were made in the plan. So that is where government of India is going for a dry run. The dry run means it will try to check whether the plan, whether the implementation, whether the platform what they have thought of for implementation of COVID-19 vaccine immunization program over the country is going to be successful or not. That is where the government is going for a dry run in Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Gujarat and Punjab. Here the government has developed a CoWIN IT platform which will actually help to register the patients or register the beneficiaries who are going to get the COVID vaccine. In this vaccination process, the beneficiaries will be given 2 dosages over a few weeks of gap. So the government has to make sure that the dosage what is given for a patient is tracked down at what time he is getting, and the next dosage when he will be given. This system has to be very clearly and very efficiently managed enough. That is where in this dry run process, the government is trying to check the process, how it is allocated, what is the date and time beneficiaries will be given, what is the planning they have done, what is the implementation and reporting mechanism will be tested in this period of time. However, there is one concern that government should make sure once 1 or 2 vaccines gets approval, the vaccination process which was given at the initial time should be the same for the second time also. It should not get mixed up. And the storage is also not a problem because these vaccines have gone through sufficient trials and that does not require cold storages. So ultra low temperature is not the requirement in India as of now. So the storage will not be a problem, and the government is planning to immunize 300 million people in the 4 high risk groups. So around 600 dosage is what is required, and the government needs to create at least this additional storage what is required with respect to 600 million doses, that is for immunization of 4 different categories of people. So these millions of storage can be dedicated to a single vaccination is what needs to be understood. And here entirely the article is to understand the process of or the government's dry run strategy which is going on now is really need of the hour in order to expand it to different domains or different sections of the people. Today's next article, the Fakkad cracks for China. The year 2020 has put on display the many defects in the country's growing might. As we all remember, China, which is trying to be a global economic power, has facing lot of challenges like anti-establishment voices in Hong Kong, wolf warfare diplomacy, and aggressive pursuit of national interest has hurt China's image. So this article we will be going to discuss in anti-establishment voices of Hong Kong, what are those, and wolf war diplomacy. What is this wolf war diplomacy is being spoken about, and with respect to national interest, how China is actually taking the steps is affecting the image on the global platform is what needs to be understood in this article comprehensively. So first, Spring Festival. So if you all remember, when our Chinese festival is remembered, there are dragons, lion dances, which and music performances sending new year greetings will create a festive air in China is what usually comes to the mind of the people. However, this year due to COVID-19 pandemic, the government has asked the citizens to get sequestered in their homes and avoid these kind of festivals in order to make sure that the things will not go as they were previously. However, China at this point of time has come out with Winston Churchill's words like never let a good crisis go to waste. So these words China has taken very seriously, and at the time of pandemic when the entire world was grappling with respect to economic and social issues to be undertaken, China took out few of the major steps like Hong Kong became one of the significant area where Communist Party of China came with full might. If you all remember, since June 2019 over legislation which was later taken down, there were many of the protests going on in Hong Kong. What was the legislation all about? The legislation was trying to allow the local government to extradite the criminals to the mainland. The law was meant for that. However, demonstrators were against this law, and Communist Party of China saw it as a challenge, and later over a period of time they removed it. But this island, Hong Kong, has been seeing the protest since 2014. Demonstrators have been showing their reluctance with respect to the electoral process changes what Communist Party of China tried to do. On June 30th, 2020, minutes before the anniversary of Hong Kong, when it was handed over to China, it passed a new national security law for Hong Kong, under which it wanted to curb dissent and civil liberties. This is what was national security law was all about, and it wanted to take care of the people who were against this interest. And passing this law empowered the government to expel lawmakers in Hong Kong Legislative Council without any recourse to judiciary. So once this law was passed, actually China took out two of the legislatures or disqualified them, four legislatures disqualified them over national security grounds. And many of the opposition members actually protest, they also resigned for it. However, beyond Hong Kong, if you see, Taiwan challenged India along with the Himalayan frontier. This also escalated tensions in South and East China is what we have seen. European nations, Australia also trade muzzles with China, which became a serious challenge in the multilateralism or global multilateralism what currently we are going to see. World Health Organization has led to an even greater sense of disenchantment with multilateral order what presently it is being seen in the global context. Not only in the global context, but if you look at China domestically also, it has taken some steps where it was actually serious enough. Like Xia Zia, a former professor of Communist Party Central Party School who have groomed a lot of top leadership, was expelled in the month of August for calling President Xi Jinping mafia boss. Another person, Ren Ziqiang, whose parents actually or whose father has served as to Mao Zedong's vice minister, was also expelled or was also put into 18 years of jail sentence. And another way around, Jack Ma, if you might be familiar with this name, Jack Ma was left red-faced after his IPO worth $37 billion were grounded ahead in November. So this is a very clear message that the person, whoever it might be, he might be an economic star, or he might be any businessman, or he might be the person who is very much near to the government, but party is the ship's captain, is what the Communist Party of China is trying to say in all these three examples what we have seen. And for the last 4 decades, economically, if you see, China, which was dependent on export-led growth strategy, has called international circulations, and it is changing over to domestic consumption based economy. So domestic consumption based economy is what China is actually trying to make as an engine of its growth. If you look at Xi Jinping announced in Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit this year that the new policy will come effect in 2021. At the Bund Summit, a conclave of regulators of bankers, at that China signaled that it will improve financial ties with the world, and China's Securities Regulatory Commission is trying to build channels for investors in order to help them to invest in the capital market of the mainland. So this clearly shows the export-led growth strategy is trying to be replaced by domestic market, which will be very clear when 14th 5-year plan of the Chinese government will come up its legislature in early 2021. So this is all about anti-establishment voices in Hong Kong and the domestic changes or domestic activities what are going on in China. Third, we will speak about wolf war approach. So as we all know, cinema is a reflection of society, and many in the nation tries to imagine themselves or personify themselves on the screen. So here the wolf war approach is all about wolf war series, in which Chinese assume the owner's responsibility of saving the world. So this wolf war approach is where China is trying to portray itself as the savior of the world. However, there were aggressive replies by the Foreign Affairs Ministry, like official social media handle was trying to push a theory called American military was the cause of COVID-19, and it also trolled Australia over alleged war crimes committed by its soldiers in Afghanistan. I don't know how India will be successful in wolf war approach. The US response with respect to China's rise as an authoritarian superpower was also put down or also tried to be stumbled by tariff war with China. Joe Biden, who is going to take over the presidency, is also against Chinese influence or Chinese growing superpower authoritarian policy. So China is going to be facing the challenges, but the more the China is tried to be pushed back, it is going to become more aggressive in its domestic and foreign policy agenda is what needs to be understood here. As we can understand from all the contexts given here, that anti-establishment voices in Hong Kong, Taiwan, wolf war diplomacy, what China is trying to do, and aggressive pursuit of national interest is going to hurt China's image at the international platform. So China, which is trying to be a global power, but it is facing a lot of criticism due to its domestic and foreign policy, what it is following as of now. So it looks that around the world, it might be China's vulnerabilities which are going to be more focused or more understood, and as well as the global order is going to be considering many challenges in the years to come, which will become more apparent. Today's next article, a costly deal for Sudan. This article we are going to discuss in the context of a recent United States move to remove Sudan's designation, which had been in place since 1993. So today, Sudan has been recognizing the state of Israel in the exchange of delisting of Sudan as a terrorism state. Sudan in 1993 was placed under or listed as terrorism state based on two factors. One was because of support or military regime which was backing Palestine's Liberation Organization. Besides, it was harboring Osama bin Laden until 1996. So these were the two reasons because of which in 1993 it was put under terrorism states list. However, the country is seeing a transition after an overthrow of dictator Omar Hassan al-Bashir. That was in 2019. There was popular uprising, after which there is a change or democratic transition which is still underway in most of the North African region from August 2019. And however, it is expected in Sudan the next general elections will be in 2022. So the ultimate objective of the mass uprising, which was only to ensure that the military, which still shares power in the transnational government, is returned to the barracks. So this was the brief history with respect to Sudan, what has happened, and now the removal or the delisting of Sudan will give an opportunity with respect to the revival of the country. Today, after this, or the situation was worse because of in 2011, many of the oil reserves of South Sudan were taken into South Sudan, where it did not have any resources for market in the international platform. Second, due to COVID-19 pandemic, food packages or food shortages, skyrocketing inflation and several unemployment are actually making the life of Sudanese people very crucial. So this changeover in the relationship with United States will help Sudan to get crucial global financial institution support, resume dollar denominated transaction, and review foreign investments after nearly 3 decades is what going to be happening in the future course of time. So if you look at the delisting, what has been done till now is in the exchange of compensation payment of $335 million for the victims of 1998 Al-Qaeda attack on US embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. So this was a costly deal for Sudan in order to normalize their ties in the global platform by recognizing state of Israel is what needs to be understood in this article. This is all about today's The Hindu News Analysis, friends. We'll meet up with again new edition. Till then, take care. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.